We're about to be joined by another of tonight's very special performer guests, the wonderful Mason Alexander Park. I will tell you very quickly the story of how Mason and I met 3 times in 2 weeks, because I discovered Mason when, or I found out about, I didn't discover Mason Alexander Park. That didn't happen. I went to go see Mason in Cabaret because everyone was telling me you have to go see Mason Alexander Park in Cabaret. Who else saw Mason in Cabaret? Correct. Thought they were transcendent, amazing. Went to New York, and then we bumped into each other, Mason and I, downstairs at the Schoenfeld Theatre seeing The Notebook, which was very nice, and nice to meet you, all that stuff. Later that night, I go to an anniversary party for Hadestown, celebrating something like their 5th anniversary on Broadway. Mason Alexander Park, nice to see you. Yes, yes, lovely. Nice to see you again. Then it's a moment, then it's cute. We then see a bunch of shows on Broadway. We fly back to London. We are too tired. We don't want to see a show. We hear that the Pippin concert at Drury Lane is amazing, like so good, and I love that show. So I'm like, okay, we'll go to the second night. We go to see that, and Mason Alexander Park in the interval on the other side of the Atlantic. And we're like, this is too many times now. And then bumped into Mason, well, saw Mason twice more at Drury Lane, but in fairness, it's because Mason was on stage and I had bought a ticket. Please welcome to the stage, Mason Alexander Park. I have chills. Take a seat. Wow, 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 wow. Now, that is a role that you have played in a couple of different productions. You did it for the first
decades,
time.
Apparently, yeah.
Regionally in the US.
Yes, I did it in Maryland, right outside of DC, at this place called the Only Theater, which infamously was the way that I got to like open Sir Ian McKellen when we first like met and had a chit chat, because he was very famous for having worked there with his one-person Shakespeare show like in the 70s or something. It's a small regional theater out kind of in the sticks. And so we met at Cabaret at a gala night, and I was like, I heard that we both worked at the Only. And he lit up like a sparkler. He remembered it to this day. He's like, the Only? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. So it is a prolific regional theater.
He's excellent for that. He did his tour of the UK, visiting all of these different theatres and doing it in such a way that it would benefit all of the different theatres. He's absolutely remarkable. And he also famously gets into trouble for impersonating other people on chat shows. So that's quite brilliant that you've just done a wildly convincing Sir Ian McKellen impression.
Thank you very much. It helps that I just saw him a couple of days ago at Much Ado, so I was like, studying up.
He must have enjoyed Much Ado.
He had a great time. He thought it was very camp.
Yeah.
He loved it. He loved it. He had such a lovely time.
So then you got to play the MC again in Cabaret in this ongoing production at the Kit Kat Club here in the West End. How did that come about, if you don't mind me asking?
So I had seen the show. I saw the show on May 29th of 2023, I think. I was, or 2022, sorry. I was in town for work. And
so Amy and Fra?
Yes. Yeah, correct. And so it's one of my favorite shows. I was really interested in the revival. I wanted to see it. And behind me, literally like a couple seats away, was Maude Apatow. And we had just bought tickets as patrons of the arts and just to watch this show, neither of us having had any conversations with anyone about doing it yet. And I remember phoning my agent and being like, I love this production. I have a lot of questions about this production. If there is ever a chance for me to like be a part of it, I would like to work on that. And we just, it wasn't discussed ever again. And I was in LA shooting a television series, and Adam Spears had reached out to my team and basically was just like, we've wanted Mason to play this role for a little bit, and we were wondering if they were interested in doing it. And so I got on a Zoom with Rebecca Frecknell, and we chatted about the show and chatted about changes that, it would undergo with an explicitly trans person playing the MC, and how, we could make it conversational with sort of the current political climate, which was sort of key to me wanting to do it. Because I wouldn't have been interested in replacing in a show if it wasn't malleable in that regard. And that team was just so giving and so interested in discovering new things with, various pairings that came into play those roles. So it was, I felt very galvanized and very excited. So I was originally meant to do it a lot earlier than I ended up doing it. And then by happenstance, by just, the way things worked out, Maude and I ended up doing it together.
Wow.
Having seen it together literally a year prior to our opening date it was May 29th. It was our first day of performances, and we were like, this is crazy. Like, I saw you. Neither of us knowing anything about each other. It was just a very weird, cyclical, universal moment.
You have this thing of running into people at the theatre.
I love seeing people at the theatre, yeah. It's where I make all my friends, apparently. Yeah.
Yes. I should point out the reason that you were at Pippin at Theatre Royal Drury Lane, was supporting the brilliant Sally Frith.
Yeah, Sally Frith, who's here tonight, my beautiful partner, who I met doing Cabaret.
Yeah. Going back to the world of Cabaret,
yeah.
malleable is exactly right, because I've been very lucky to see the show with many different performers, and the MC that Eddie played, the MC that Adam is playing on Broadway, the MC that Billy is playing right now, completely different characters. And I'm wondering about some of the little distinctions that the role was equipped, that I guess you were able to bring to the role during your time from your perspective.
I think the first major difference is a visual difference. They were not remarkably androgynous in like a gender non-conforming way. They were more kind of just, I don't know, beings.
It's a less explicitly queer
yeah,
character in some iterations in this production, yeah.
Correct. And that was very conscious and very in conversation with you know, the identities of those performers. And so being asked to participate and be a part of the conversation, I was like, well, I'm a bit of this, and I'm very obviously like queer, and I would like to wear that, and I would like to use it for the storytelling of the piece, because it is, you know, I mean, Alan's version of the Emcee and Joel's version of the Emcee are both so remarkably queer in their own, you know, in their own right, and I sort of wanted to put my own stamp on it. So a lot of it began with conversations with Tom Scott, who designed things, and just sort of being like, can we add an underbust corset, and can we do fingerless gloves, and can we do these sorts of like visual things? And he was kind of game for anything. So all of a sudden, you know, the Emcee was in a lot of slap and a corset and like things that just didn't really exist prior to that. So I've never really been invited into a show or into a process where they're that willing to like reevaluate the, you know, the iconic look of their lead character. Like you wouldn't get that in Wicked. You're not gonna, you know, go in and all of a sudden Elphaba's in a blue, you know, outfit. Like it's just not. There are certain things that are incredibly important to be set in a specific way. And so, yeah, I was just really excited that everyone seemed interested in playing, because they not only did they care about the piece so much and about it being malleable and having a life beyond just its first cast, but they also cared about the performers that they were, you know, hiring to do it. So it's about, I think it's about creating a lens in which you can support those actors in the best way possible as well, so that, you know, audiences get the best experience, rather than just being like, can you do this because Eddie did that? Or can you do this because Farah did that? There weren't many moments where something had to be that specific, if any, that come to mind, except for the suit, like, except for Act 2, you know?
Yeah. Would you do it on Broadway if the opportunity became, I say this like I'm a producer or a casting director on the show, because you've been doing a lot of work in the West End. We've been enjoying this very much.
I'm hiding from America, apparently. Seems a very good time to not be there. Part of the interest that I think I would ever have about revisiting it on Broadway, besides getting to do that show in New York, is the current political climate. I mean, when I agreed to do it here, there was already so much vitriol and really intense hyperfixation on centering trans people in a lot of like culture and political discussions within this country, that were escalating and were becoming really uncomfortable to sort of watch from afar. And there was a political edge, you know, an interest as someone who likes to be a part of art that also has the ability to sort of coexist in a space where it intersects with activism a bit. That makes Cabaret as a piece, as a political piece of theater, so exciting to be a part of, because unfortunately it's incredibly relevant right now. And it seems with each passing year, it just becomes more and more relevant and more closely resembling the exact path that we, you know, ourselves are on. And I think that self-reflection is really, it's a scary thing to be inside of, but it also is a very like healing thing and an important thing to be a part of. So I would revisit the show with that in mind, because America right now is not looking good for trans politics and just for trans people in general. And I've had friends that have had their, you know, passports revoked and destroyed and vandalized, and people that a year from now may not be able to have proper documentation to even prove that they exist as an American citizen, because of the way the, you know, the structure of our politics right now are attempting to legitimately erase and eradicate a group of people. So yeah, the shit kicker in me kind of wants to just, if there ever was a time to do it again as a trans person, it would be around now, I would imagine.
Who are those people who inspired you creatively as you were coming into all of this talent, as you were growing into the Mason Alexander Park that we now know?
As I was falling into it. Taylor Mack is a remarkable artist, very New York based, you know, transgressive, amazing artist that I found when I was very young, that I love very much. John Cameron Mitchell, Alan Cumming. I think that, you know, there weren't a lot of explicitly trans or non-binary artists that achieved any sort of level of fame that would have entered my public consciousness, but they played a lot of characters, like those actors in particular, that intersected with that kind of identity. And so I think their involvement in shows like Cabaret or Hedwig and the Angry Inch or Rocky Horror, you know, with Tim Curry, like those were people that I saw aspects of myself in. I didn't feel fully, you know, embraced by who they were as individuals, but I felt that as performers, we had some sort of overlap. And their success meant that maybe, you know, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, there would be more opportunity for people like me to not only play those roles, but then play ones outside of that, which, you know, hopefully is happening.
And it's cumulative as well, because with you doing this, with you playing these roles, with you bringing your authenticity to characters in pre-existing shows, having the conversation to say, this is what I want to bring to it, I want to do it in a way that is authentic, it then speaks profoundly to young people in the audience, to people, to the next generation of talent, of trans talent and non-binary talent, who don't necessarily see a place for themselves in an industry which, especially in musical theatre and traditional musical theatre, can feel very gendered. Here are the roles you can play over here. Here are the roles you can play over here. Even within a breakdown of that, there are types. You're going to be this type of person. You're going to be this type of person. Was there an element of a challenge, or was it scary to try and work in this space, knowing that you wanted to represent yourself authentically, which you've now been able to do successfully in many shows?
I never experienced feeling shut out from the industry. I never felt that I wasn't able to try to make a lane for myself, which, even though that doesn't mean that it was easy by any means, like it was incredibly difficult to, you know, I don't know, get to where I am. But I don't know, I didn't feel bogged down by a lot of the challenges that I think people might anticipate someone in my position would have experienced. And I think maybe that helped. I think being sort of casually optimistic that, like, this is a playful industry, and that it is an industry literally founded on play, on the concept of pretending and being anything that you want to be, that so long as I believed that I could play anything, other people would too. And it worked. You know, the first job that I ever got as an actor, that in terms of getting like an equity card, getting, you know, making money to be on the stage, was playing a woman, and in Mary Poppins. And I was the villain in Mary Poppins in this major like regional theater production of it when I was 19 years old in college. Whatever insane person, like our director that had this idea from hearing me sing, you know, something in an audition and being like, wait, that would actually be very cool. Like, let's make this kind of an interesting, you know, part.
I want to see that again. You as Miss Andrew in Mary Poppins, doing brimstone and treacles.
Yes, yeah, very all original. Like,
is there footage?
I don't know about that. But, you know, like we forced Cameron McIntosh to have a conversation about that role and about that show and about allowing people of different gender identities to play it. Whether or not that conversation would go well now, I have no idea. But you know, back then there was interest in play, in make-believe, and just being like, yeah, if you can sing it and you're convincing and you're an actor, like, do it. And I think that got me really far, because being empowered at a young age to feel like you can do anything, regardless of gender or regardless of age or whatever. I wouldn't have auditioned for Hedwig and the Angry Inch when I was still 20 years old and gotten it on the, you know, done a year on tour with that show, when she's supposed to be played by a 50-year-old and usually a famous person. And like, yes, I was truly no one. And so I think there was this sense of anarchy that's always existed in my approach to the industry that helped me maybe convince other people that they should take a chance on me, rather than being like, please, can I, you know.
That's so interesting and so important, that idea of that initial empowerment being the thing that gave you the propulsion to then have this brilliant career and allowed you to inspire onward, which I know you have. I've heard people who have been inspired by your performances, and there's so much power as well in opening that door and being situated to open that door. And there's a lot that goes into it, but a door was opened when you did Cabaret in the West End with Marisha Wallace and Billy Porter going to the show. When Leighton Williams went into the show, doors get opened and it facilitates other options, and it just broadens the perspective on, well, I guess this role could be this as well, and it allows you to do more with that production. It speaks to more people. It's good for everybody.
Yeah.
And then we arrive at the ultimate theatrical playground, which is Shakespeare. You are doing Shakespeare in the West End at Theatre Royal Drury Lane, back-to-back Shakespearean productions with huge stars in this massive theatre. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going great. I haven't had this much fun in a very, very long time. Cabaret was a dream role. It was a dream show, and it was a really amazing group of people. This has sort of redefined my sense of playfulness in a way that has just, I think, made all of us reconnect with our inner child, because Shakespeare can be incredibly scary, especially as an American, especially as someone who, you know, had never done it in a professional context whatsoever. When Jamie asked me to do it, I was a bit like, I could be really shit, and you just don't know. Like you're taking a big chance on like Ariel is such an iconic part in, you know, in the canon of Shakespearean roles, and I guess I didn't think about it too much, or didn't care too much. I was just excited to be around Sigourney Weaver. So I said yeah, and it worked out well. And then he asked me to do the next one. But he's just cultivated this really amazing environment in which everyone, again, feels empowered to be whatever they want to be. And he encourages you to bring yourself into the room so that we can build the show around the personalities that we have. So it very often like just starts, the rehearsal space just kind of is this liminal space where you feel free to draft any version of the show that you want as an actor. And then we begin to piece together what that play looks like. But everyone comes in off book, and there's no, you know, table work. There's no weeks of trying to figure out and setting things. Like we come in off book, and you're mic'd, and you're in this space that's just this massive soundscape in Sherwood, and you're just playing and discovering the play through the words. And yeah, everyone's just being very silly. It's a good time. It's a very good time.
Yeah. This is what I've been so intrigued about, is what, and I'm sure many people are, what the Jamie Lloyd rehearsal room looks like, because I think people really discern an opinion of what his process is or what his shows are going to look like, and then something like Much Ado About Nothing happens, and everyone's like, oh, this is not what we were expecting this to be. This is joyous and silly and fun in a completely different way. And I've seen his work for a long time before, like, the Jamie Lloyd Company became what it was. I saw an amazing production of Assassins that he did years ago, and he did the European premiere of Urinetown and Evita at the Park. And it's so creatively interesting. But what I have heard is that those spaces, those rehearsal rooms, give the actors the opportunity to play, as you said. And it makes sense why so many huge stars and so many brilliant talents like yourself keep going back.
Yeah, it's an inspiring place to make anything when you feel that you can genuinely go for it, and if it doesn't land, it doesn't land. But odds are there will be something useful within throwing everything that you have, you know, at the wall. I think that just encourages playfulness, and even with The Tempest, which is traditionally not an incredibly funny show, we had the most fun and the most soul enriching experience putting that play together, in the same way that we have with Much Ado. There's just a lot more confetti and a lot more pink in Much Ado.
And you got to fly over the Theatre Royal Drury Lane stage.
Yes, I did.
Famously very haunted.
Yes, yeah. Famously, lots of ghosts.
Yeah. What was that like? What's that view?
I didn't see any ghosts, but I would probably be one of the only one. I feel like everyone in the show at one point or another has seen a ghost. I felt like I felt this to them at points in the play, but it could have been the air conditioning.
Did you sing Defying Gravity during tech? This is what I need to know.
No, but do you know there's this great video of Katya, the drag queen?
Uh-huh.
I don't actually understand the context. I've just seen the clip about 1 million times. But she's being lifted from the ground, you know, strung up like I was in The Tempest, but she's unconscious and in front of a live crowd, and she's just like flopped over and lifting. And I used to do that during tech. And I thought it was stupid. Yeah, I was just but no, I never sang.
Amazing. Amazing. I have a trivial Much Ado question. You sing a couple of great disco numbers.
Sure.
In the show. Was there a long list, like as they're figuring out what are the songs that are going to work here? Were there backup options?
Yeah, of course, of course. I think we went with. I think they ended up getting all the main options that Jamie wanted. Jamie, that playlist is like the inside of his mind. If you like, that's the person I know. Or these really camp like '90s tunes with a dash of disco. And but there were some that we tested out that never made it in. Like there was one day where I sang "Endless Love," but I did both parts, so I just kind of like duetted with myself, and yeah, I don't know if it played well, obviously, because it's not in the show. But in my
mind, it's doing great.
The workshop of it was great. I thought it was hilarious. So you know, you throw little pitches like that, and then you go, you can't get the rights, or that's actively not funny. I don't know which camp that fell into, why we didn't end up doing it, but I'm going to blame the rights.
Yeah, amazing. I do want to talk a little bit about Hedwig and the Angry Inch, because now getting to know you as a performer, I mean, vocally and with you, it makes sense on so many levels. And how satisfying was that role to play? I mean, it's essentially a long musicalized monologue with these really intense, like, punk rock performance numbers.
I think it was Meryl Streep who said that Hedwig was like Hamlet on heels. And I completely agree with that kind of perception of the piece. It is a sort of bulletproof piece of theater. I think that, I mean, obviously you can probably get a really bad Hedwig and have a terrible night at the show. But the words and the music of that show are unlike anything I've ever experienced as an audience member. And it is such a life-affirming, identity-affirming, like soul-affirming experience for both the audience and the performer. So getting to do it, you know, something that I like remember buying the DVD when I was 16 years old or whatever, and trying to figure out if this was something I wanted to pursue. And being like, oh my God, there are, you know, trans people in musical theater, and here's one. I didn't expect that, you know, I would be basically still a child and get a chance to do it at 20, 21 years old. But I started as Darren Chris's standby, and so Darren, whenever he wasn't in the show, I would do it. And then Ewan Morton, who people might know from here from Taboo, who played the original Boy George in that show, also played the role on tour with me for a while. It was incredible, and to do that in front of about like 2,000 to 3,000 people, because we were playing the biggest houses in America, screaming, like it was the epitome of a rock concert. I don't think I've had that much adrenaline in my life. But yeah, as you get older, you start to think, man, the heels should come down. Just like, you know, as each year passes, I go, okay, well, the half an inch lower, like half an inch lower. Yeah, we got options with the shoes. They were these insane shoes that were built by Madonna's cobbler, which was already just so camp. But they were steel like enforced at the bottom, so you could see they had these rods and stuff to kind of keep the heel from snapping. So you would jump off of like a metal car onto the stage is the first thing that happens in the show. And that impact, they were like, oh, we broke a lot of heels until we started enforcing them with metal. So the shoes were amazing. Like you walked in these 3D printers basically, and then they made sure that they like worked with the ergonomics of your feet.
I believe that's the plot of Kinky Boots, actually.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
I'm also just stuck on Madonna's cobbler. And
I know. I just like the phrase Madonna's cobbler.
Madonna's cobbler, yeah.
I never learned his name. I couldn't tell you the company.
I don't think when you work as Madonna, you stop having a name.
Yeah.
You become.
You have no identity.
He's
anymore.
making those shoes, and he's like, "I'm Madonna's cobbler now. This is all it's going to be. I've peaked."
Yeah, you peaked. I mean, that is quite the peak.
Yeah.
But yeah, we that I remember getting the option of heel height in the beginning, and I was like, "What did Neil have?" I'll just do, when you're young, you're an idiot. You're like, I'll do what the coolest person did or whatever. You know, I want to go hard. Yeah. And then about halfway through, you're like, why the fuck did I do that? I've broken my ankle already. Like, you know, you're just like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah. And am I right in thinking one of the theaters you visited during that time was the Kennedy Center?
Yes, may she rest.
Which I think it is important to talk about because it has been, if people don't know, politicized, weaponized in the early days of the current US presidency, and it is situated because of its relationship to the government to become a political pawn in, I guess, another element of a needless culture war that has nothing to do with the real issues facing the country or the real agenda of the people running it.
Yeah, you know, whoever's in control of the stories is in control of public perception and of empathy, and storytelling is an incredible tool in how people connect. So if you remove certain stories and certain people's inclusions in those stories and erase, all that kind of representation, you start to create a world in which people can't see themselves. It's classic. It's very clever, and it's worked before, and it will work again, and it's working now. But yeah, when I was there, that was where we ended the tour. We sat down at the Kennedy Center for a month, and Trump was still in office, and he was bonkers then. Anyone who thinks it's bad now, I was like, he was bad then, but he just didn't. I don't think he had caught on to the Kennedy Center yet. Like he didn't get out much in the first 4 years, and we used to take the piss out of him all the time. I think I would come up with a new Trump joke like every day and test it out in front of the audience because I just hated it.
There's a lot of material.
There's a lot to work with, and it was right after the inauguration too. So infamously, that inauguration, like no one showed up. It was this incredible thing, and then he went on TV and he was like, "It was huge. Everybody came. Everybody was they were all there at the mall, and it was great." And like he had like. He had the best. His perception of the world is incredible.
When are you hosting Saturday Night Live with these impressions? My goodness.
That was my first attempt at a Trump.
Really solid.
I hope he's watching. I've never.
He's famously a fan. I don't.
Loves the theater. Love you. But yeah, he had just done this whole thing, and the whole conceit of Hedwig is that it's happening. She is tailing a much more successful performer who she used to date, who has stolen all of her music and become this massive star. And the challenge of doing the show on Broadway and doing it on tour is that you're already playing these massive venues. So you have to find bigger venues within the public consciousness that are nearby within reason that Tommy Gnosis could be playing his show at. And so in New York, I believe Times Square was he was doing a concert in Times Square every night. And so at the Kennedy Center, we were using the National Mall, which is where the inauguration happened. And so I used to make a joke about, it being a place where huge groups of people were known to gather. Oh. And everyone loved it. Everybody infamously who came hated him. No one liked him. And that's probably why he shut down the Kennedy Center in reality, because he was tired of people making fun of him. Because every show that toured through, I imagine, just was like, what jokes can we put into this show?
And long may it continue.
Yeah.
Over the next few years.
Exactly.
In the hope that there is another election in a few years and the world keeps turning.
Fingers crossed.
In the meantime, we're going to sing another song here at MickeyJoTheatre Live.
Such a hopeful message to end on.
Yeah. And staying in the world of Hedwig, because I didn't get to see you in the show, but I think we all need a little sense of the brilliance that was.
Thank you.
A little bit of Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
You know the sun is in your eyes. and down that hill. You turn it on and off at will. There's nothing here to thrill or bring you down. And if you got no other choice, you know you can follow my voice through the dark turns and noise of this wicked little town. Oh, Lady Luck has led you here. And they're so twisted up, they twist you up by fear. The pious, hateful, and devout, you're turning tricks till you're turned out. The wind's so cold it burns, you're burning out. Blow it round. And if you got no other choice, you know you can follow my voice through the dark turns and noise of this wicked little town. The fates are vicious and they're cruel. You learn too late, you used two wishes like a fool. And then you're someone you are not. And Junction City ain't the spot. Remember Mrs. Lot and when she turned around. And if you got no other choice, you know you can follow my voice through the dark turns and noise of this wicked little town.
Magical.
For 10 more seconds, I'm MickeyJoTheatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!